Hi there. So I have been attempting to go a few days now without posting this or doing this, but the spirit realm seems to have other ideas. So I'm putting this into the Archons and Aeons pile. Well, first of all, this is kind of live, but it's private for now, so I can record this and then make it public without having to upload it. That's why there's no chat or anything going on. And I'm putting this in the Aeons and Archons category because in this world we're living in, it's not the real world, but it kind of is. We're in a it's like a mind something. I don't want to call it a prison. I don't want to call it a matrix. It's something where your inner self is reflected externally along with everyone else's inner selves, and we're trying to create a better version of reality. Kind of, sort of. It'll be clear in time. So, what is a god? First, we have to establish that there is source. I think I spelled that wrong, but whatever. Did I spell that wrong? Source. Yeah, I spelled it right. Weird. So, we're going to call it source. Um, some call it prime creator. I think this would be better. Well, okay, whatever. Um, Others call it infinite intelligence. We're just going to put I. There's a lot of names for the all, the source of all creation. So that energy is neither male nor female. It is all of it. It's not an age. It's infinite. It has no religion or spiritual ties. It is everything in all directions. Okay? Now, well, if we go into the reality we're in, there's going to be dimensions, frequencies, and like planes of existence. Okay, kind of like that Jacob's ladder thing, where we got to climb the ladder or shoot some ladders or whatever those games were. Okay, we're not talking about the real world. What we're talking about here is in this place we're existing and experiencing life. What is a god? Well, first and foremost, there is the source of all everything. Neither male nor female, no gender, and you can name it whatever you want, it's still not going to describe what it is because it's unfathomable. In our reality, we have gods and goddesses. We also have titans, demigods, um, all the beings in the spirit realms, fae, and all the natural world beings. And then we have all the beings we don't know about, which we call extraterrestrials. So, a god, well, let's not forget the humans and other species. Humans, others. A god is technically everything because the source of all creation exists within everything. So everything is God, goddess, okay, whatever, depending on gender. But there are some people, some humans, among other beings, that have claimed to be gods and have exhibited superhuman abilities, okay? Miracles and sorts. Throughout time, okay, let me rewind. So everything is God, source. And then we have, through religions, we have all these other gods, right? We have the All Father, we have all the gods and goddesses, etc., etc. What is the difference between, let's say, I don't know, how do I even word this without pissing people off? I guess it doesn't matter. So let's say there's a human who, throughout its life, like billions of years ago, let's put some metaphoric human in some existence, in some timeline, some reality within the construct we're experiencing. That person recognizes their connection to the source of everything. They recognize that they are that in corporeal form, and they unlock their abilities through their genetic code and all of that. They figure it out, basically. So then they become what others consider a god. Now, once your genetics and everything are active within this construct, you can activate your genes to be ageless. You can activate genes to fly. You can activate genes to be telepathic. You can activate genes to grow feathers. They're all in your genetic structure. You can do anything. You just need to find the proper sequence, the codes, the triggers, the activations. And those are activated and found after you deal with the shadow self. You integrate the light and the dark. Okay? Once you do that, you unlock your abilities. Once you do that, you provide for the entire world. Whatever you can, you support people. You help others. You lift them up to bring them to the source. Now, considering the emotions that a physical being can feel, there are some beings who don't use this connection properly. Just because they're divine does not mean they are passive or benevolent. Okay? Even the light can blind. So some of these beings throughout history evolved in a way where they are being seen as gods, such as Aphrodite, Ares, Demeter, Persephone, Hades, etc., etc. But they are not the source in full. They are a fractal of the source, an aspect. So in your construct, you could very well have been whomever, but in this reality, you just know yourself as Betty or Bob or Joe or something, right? Well, the people that figured it out previously and evolved and left and went to do whatever they're doing, some of them can go to other places and act like gods. They seed planets, they seed new constructs, they create new realities, they create new frequencies, dimensions, colors, life forms, etc. They are, for lack of a better word, a god or goddess, but they are not the pure source. Now, when one of these beings decides to use its abilities to cause harm, the more it uses those abilities to cause harm, the more it goes into a darker aspect of the energy of source. Lily, stop. Stop. No, you can't. I don't care. Some of these beings use their abilities to cause harm to others. Some of them use their abilities to pretend to be the god. Others pretend that God doesn't exist and drain all that power. There's so many possibilities. There's so many methods. There's things that are unimaginable to you because you haven't experienced them and you haven't been shown any metaphors in television or movies or storybooks. So when this occurs and somebody uses your abilities for bad, then the scales must be balanced and others appear to use those abilities for good. For every dark, there must be a light. For every light, there must be a dark. The balance must be maintained in this construct. Outside of this reality we're experiencing, the rules are completely different. In this reality we're experiencing, we're creating the rules as we go. Because if we go back into the religious texts and the information that's been provided to us through channeling and everything else, we've been told that we're here to create a new earth. Why would we create a new one when we can fix the old one, right? Well, because the new earth, or whatever these new planets are under the rulership of other beings who have already evolved. They take their followers with them and they go to those worlds and they create a new Adam and Eve story. So to those people, the person in that construct that evolved and went off to another planet and started creating little peeps, they become their God. And this person here, this being, can choose to never express the truth to these beings on the planet that they created and they're tending as a gardener, keeping them blind to who actually the true source or what the true source is, so that they can get all that energy to them instead of the energy going into the universe to be cycled back into the universe, into the multiverses. Because you're supposed to get what you give, right? That's how this place works. Well, they can change the rules of that because they have awakened to their source self. So they can act like God. They can tell you that they created everything. They can tell you that, these are the rules and that's the rules and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they are just another person like you and me that evolved on another planet or in another timeline and went off to do something else and pretend that they're God. Does that mean that the source of all creation is going to punish them and knock them down? Absolutely not. Because everything's permitted. It's free. It's free will. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. But whatever you do has repercussions. It's cause and effect. So what happens when a being like this starts pretending that they're the source of all creation and there's nothing above them? Well, then another being shows up to balance the scales, and this being goes and combats this being, but without stooping to that level. For example, this being brings the truth. This being perpetuates the lies. But to the being perpetuating the lies, it is their truth. And to this person, this version is the liar. So this person can spin this story saying this is the accuser, and this person spins a story to this person saying this is the accuser. Both of them are right, both of them are wrong. Because it's all perception. It's all depending on how you perceive the truth of what you experience. So when you dig deeper and you start digging into what actually is a God, well, there's the source of everything. And then there's all the life forms in existence that have the potential to evolve, to grow, to expand, to ascend, to transform, to become something more than they are, or to unlock the things within them which are already there. So what does this mean for you? This means that if you continue your spiritual path without trying to accomplish anything, where you're just tending to your own garden, you're tending to your needs, you're tending to the people, you're doing what you feel is right, you're unlocking your abilities, you're meditating, you're checking with your genomes, you're checking with your cells, you're in harmony, okay? Then you get to become one of these beings too, who are considered a God. because you already are a divine being. You are a child of the Creator, whether it's this Creator, or that Creator. The thing we have to learn here is to recognize none of these are the real God. None of these are the real goddess. Even the word God, goddess, isn't enough to describe the source of all creation. So what do? Well, some people call it a spiritual war, but in the eyes of Source, there is no war. There is nothing to be maintained. All that war, all the spiritual warfare, all the imbalances, they're within the construct we're experiencing, which is reflecting back towards us our inner struggles between light and dark. Does this make sense to you? I hope it does. So when you're praying to a being that you call Father God or Mother Goddess or the Lord and Lady, I'm not sure of all the other names, there's billions of them. What you're actually praying to, if it has a name, is one of these people that have been alive for billions, possibly trillions, maybe even just thousands or hundreds of years, who have evolved and ascended. When you are communicating, when you want to communicate with the source of all creation, you don't pray externally. You speak to your inner self. You quiet the mind, because the mind is a satellite that brings in information. It brings it to the body, the brain, to be processed, sent into the heart to be felt, and then into the guts to be transmuted, and out the feet into the earth to be grounded into the reality you're experiencing. So the best way, really the most authentic way to communicate with God isn't to pray verbally into the construct you're experiencing. It's to pray and communicate internally, and then allow that source within you to act as you in your reality. Otherwise, you're praying to these people who are harnessing that energy from you of prayer, that source energy, which means the beings that have chosen to use their energy for dark aren't being supplied by source as much, because the construct's rules vary. So source created all of us here, and all of existence permits everything to occur and provides everything for everyone, regardless of what they're doing with it. It's neutral. These beings aren't neutral. They utilize that energy to harm or to create harm or to create love, whatever. And when they run out of that energy and they attempt to communicate with the source within them to draw more energy from that, there are certain limitations that they and their subconscious have placed upon themselves, because throughout their life they have learned what is right and what is wrong. So they have subconscious beliefs, which is why the Archons can't really connect to the source, but they don't really recognize that they are the source anyway. They're connected regardless whether they acknowledge it or not. They just don't know how to access it, because in order to access the full potential and power of the true source, you can't just be in the dark. You have to utilize the light as well, which means you have to do acts of kindness, which is why in our modern world, you see sometimes you see people, who do horrible things and then they go donate to charity. They're attempting to offset the scales, to balance them, but that's not how it works, which is why you have the world we live in now. So what do? They create species. They tell them that they are, this person is God, and this person is this, and this person is that, and these people bow down and pray, because they're still connected to the purity of source, because they're doing good and bad, they're balanced, and they're looking for a connection to a higher power. These beings show up, they're like, we're your higher power, now give us your energy, and these people do. Some don't. Some see through lies and give their energy to something else. Others recognize that both the light and the dark are part of the same construct, and they give their energy to themselves, and they evolve themselves and become the new gods. And the cycle continues until you get the purity of a true soul, a true being, someone who is divinely, purely connected to the source in balance of light and dark. Some people say those beings that are so pure have already existed, and walk among us. Some say some of them were here 2,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, etc., etc. Regardless of what other people say, the story can vary from person to person to person. There is no real factual truth in the reality we're experiencing. What there is methods and, in a way, logic based with emotion. How things work, what you feel with those things working, how they affect other people, and how you perceive those effects as light or dark. You can be in a dark room and turn on the light, and now it's a light room. What's the difference? You flip the switch. So these gods flip switches back and forth. Some of them stay within the dark and they flip it just a little to bring a little light. Others stay in the light, and their method of darkness is to just speak the truth and combat and have spiritual warfare. Source doesn't want war. Source wants harmony and balance and neutrality, not, fighting each other and condemning Aeons or Archons or other gods or other goddesses or religions or people or, genders or whatever the fuck. That's not what Source wants. That's what these people want. And some of us are caught in the middle of all of it. So, what is a god? A god is an evolved living being. What is a demigod? A demigod is the offspring of one of these evolved beings with a less evolved being. What is a titan? Same kind of, but mixed with nature, like natural forces. What are the spirit realm things? Infinite possibilities. What are extraterrestrials? Living beings on other planetary systems that were evolved due to different natural circumstances. So on one planet, fire is wet and the beings over there look like, I don't know, something. On another planet, humans never evolved and it was just reptile beings. On another planet, reptiles and humans never evolved and it's just cat-like beings, a planet full of mammals that evolved. Are they any less God than God? Kind of. Are they any more God than Source? No. Do they all have the capacity to come into harmony with who they are, to open the channel of Source energy into their reality directly through themselves? Absolutely. But in order for that to happen, you have to realize there is no war. We're not here to fight each other. We're not here to have, Archangel this or Archangel that strike down Lucifer and bow before Jesus and bow before Mary, or, send messages through Gabriel or this. It's none of that. Those are all stories we've made up for ourselves. The basics of existence are you and your connection to Source and your actions in the external world. Okay? So I'm going to cut this short because I don't want it to get to 30 minutes. And I will do another video on this if you guys have any more questions. But what is a god? A living being that has ascended. What is Source? It's unfathomable. Don't even try to comprehend it. When you're praying, pray within yourself silently, not externally into a construct. When you want to speak out something to be created into the construct, then you get into a meditative prayer state and use your voice as God Source would use its voice if it incarnated in 100% pure connected being, and every word it would say would come into creation instantaneously. So they wouldn't even have to say, it's nighttime. They could turn day to night instantly and rearrange the entire solar system without you even knowing. ever. You wouldn't even know that it was rearranged. You would just think it's another normal day. You'd be bored. But what you didn't know happened is the entire universe changed shape. So what do you do when you're confronted by beings claiming to be God, or a being claiming to be the God, or a being claiming to be the anti-God or the antichrist or whatever? Well, you ignore it because you know better. You are source. You are an aspect of source. And if these people are claiming to be God, then what they're doing is abusing their power. Has there been a true source incarnated being who incarnated that was purely connected to that source, like an open channel of neutral source energy of creation into existence and walked this planet? Probably. Does it have a name? Probably. Do we know who it is in history books and it's 100% truthful? Maybe. But considering the world we live in with Archons and Aeons and aliens and everything else, the truth is kind of subjective and left to be perceived by you and your eyes and your heart. I can't tell you which one of your messiahs or saviors is a liar or isn't a liar. For all I know, they are all right. They are all truth. Or they're all liars. It is not my place to tell you what to believe, but it is my place to show you what is actually going on a very basic structure of existence kind of way, because we seem to be missing common sense as a species, because beings like this screwed with beings like this to make these beings think that this person is this person, when in reality this person is that person, because they use that power to control while this uses that power to free. So the battle goes on endlessly. That's not what Source wants. That's not what Source intended. That's not what Source even thinks about to create people to pit them against each other, to play mind games, to create one above all, or the other beneath the rest, or whatever. That's petty human things. Also, true Source does not have a penis or a vagina. It does not have breasts or a uterus or a womb. It does not have hair, fingers, or fingernails. It does not have a body. It does not have a name. It does not have vocal cords or anything. If the deity you are praying to has genitals, it is not Source. It is an evolved, living, corporeal being that evolved into a higher dimensional state, such as the 12th dimension, which is mathematically, I think there's 13 or something that science has found, but who knows? That's probably fake. These beings communicate from outside the realms, kind of like we have this one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and then we go into the hypercube, and then 4, 5, 6, etc., etc., etc. Little itty-bitty human beings are over here in 3D, while these Aeons and Archons are over here in 12D, doing their loopty-loopty things with their little wings and horns and whatever else you want to put on them. And they're like, yo, we're God. And you're like, oh, yeah, hi, God. Love you. And they're like, yeah, give me all that love. When really, they're still in a construct, except they're at the top of it. And after that is where, in history books, it's called the firmament, the sapphire ceiling, the eye of God, the whatever. Because outside of this, there's something completely different. And these little beings here that are pretending to be gods are nothing more than like kindergarten, little sprouts that come up out of the ground in the real world, in the real place, the actual place. So let's say, I don't know, let's pick Aphrodite. So she's over here doing her thing in this reality. She ascended, she evolved, went to the 12th dimension, and is focusing on love and war, the balance of things. So she evolves and ascends, and then she becomes a tree in that other place because she was like a tree here. I'm using a tree just as an example because of the tree of life and tree of good and evil. So now in the real world, this tree would be called the tree of Aphrodite, and its fruit would teach you about love and war and everything else. Now, these little people in that world that don't want to go into the construct can eat one of these fruits in that world and gain all the knowledge. Hence why there is a myth about Adam and Eve eating an apple and gaining knowledge they shouldn't have gained. This is the basic metaphor of that in a doodle format. I hope this makes sense. I hope this helps you. This is in no way intended to offend anybody of any religion, of any time, space, frequency, reality, known and unknown. This is simply what I have learned and what I have been asked to share with you by my spirit team, by source, by both sides, Aeons and Archons, because the confusion has gotten to a point where people are getting arrogantly warriorish and thinking that this is a spiritual war. What the war is on your ego thinking that you have to fight a war, which has perpetuated a war like an endless text message battle between you and somebody that doesn't go anywhere because this person thinks they're right, this person thinks they're right, and there's no balance in between. What we're here to do is to bring each other home, which means Aeon and Archon have to go hand in hand, side by side, to get the fuck out of here, which includes all the little people that they screwed with, both positively and negatively, which is what we're going through now in our current time, the year, supposedly the year 2021 for the Western civilization. And I say that because in the Assyrian civilization, it's the year 6768, and in the Chinese year, it's some other year, etc., etc. So we're not supposed to be sitting here holding crucifixes and, pentagrams and pentacles and battling each other and calling this person Satan and that person Jesus and whatever. That's completely besides the point, and it's a dramatic story written out for people and played out by actors and paid actor angels and paid actor gods and goddesses to help humans get out of this construct. When in reality, the Aeons and Archons all work together, the gods all work together, the demons and the angels all work together, all the beings of the spirit realms, natural world, extraterrestrials, they all work together. But we're told that there's conflict, so we don't see the truth. We're busy being kept here, looking at these beings as God and the devil, good and evil, which is still part of the construct because source is neutral. There is no good and evil within source. So what is a god? You are a god. Lily is a god. This table is a god. Can this table evolve to create other life forms? Not in its current state, but that tree outside might be able to if it's left uncut. So what do you do, right? What do you do with all this information? You meditate, you check within yourself, you ignore the voices in your head and the analytical and logical rationale of your mind, and you feel within your heart and your guts could be compromised due to what you're eating, but your heart won't really lie to you unless you're heartbroken, and then it'll constantly tell you to run for love. But what it really wants is that source connection, which has been diluted into making you think that what you want is something physical and corporeal when what you really want is a source connection. And if you don't have the source connection, you end up like the Archons. If you do have the source connection, you end up like the Aeons. And even the Aeons and Archons are still within the construct of this matrix. Outside of this construct, they are something completely different, probably your best friends or your sisters or brothers or neighbors that are joining this construct to help you figure this out so that you can come out of this construct. If you've seen the previous videos, I have told you what this reality actually is in short term. It's a a healing place where you get to defragment your soul. To others, it's a place of evolution and ascension. To others, it's a place to replicate aspects of source into other gods, blah, 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 blah. Point is, what is a god? What is source? You can't explain source. You can explain gods. That's the difference. Source is everything. A god or goddess is limited to what you believe they do and what they claim they do and what they physically do. Because if the gods and goddesses actually were as powerful as they claim to be, the realities we're living wouldn't be the way they are. Once you start recognizing your own abilities, you will recognize the truth in this video and many others. You'll be able to sense it. You'll be able to feel it. You'll be able to hear it because your source connection will tell you what's still within the construct of black and white and what isn't. So when you're out there thinking that you're a light worker and you got to battle the demons, you're falling into this. And if you're on the other side thinking you're the whistleblower, the love and light group, the one that has to, battle things, or the one that's like draining things, you're still in the construct. But when you sit there and you acknowledge the conflict, you see what's going on, and you go within and communicate with the source within, and you imagine, visualize, create a different reality, you take yourself out of that construct into a different reality, which is higher up on the vibrational scale of existence, step by step, until you get to the place where you are walking side by side with the beings you once called gods, and then together we get the heck out of here. And we wake up in the real place. Quote unquote, wake up. I hope this makes sense to you. You might need to watch this video a few times over. Ask your inner guide, ask yourself, pull some tarot cards on it if you want. I have no need to lie to you. I don't gain anything from this. This is just what I've learned, what I've seen, what I've experienced, what I've come into this life knowing. So, the key thing to remember, stop praying to other gods. Pray within yourself to the being within you, which is directly connected to source, so that your connection can expand, so that you can see more clearly. Once you do, you'll be able to do these doodles, and you'll be able to share information with other people on what is actually going on, which will eliminate the conflict between light and dark, and you'll take that yin-yang ball and play soccer with it with the devil. Because there's no fighting. There's no war. I don't care how many people are dying. I don't care how many people are sick. I don't care how many horrible things are happening. We're all doing that to each other. It's not source doing it. It's not a spiritual war for people's souls. That is all drama. The factual basics of common sense existence is, can you get along? Can you walk on a planet without destroying it? Can you look in the mirror without hating yourself? Can you sit side by side with a demon and not judge them? Can you be side by side with an angel and not feel like you're beneath them? Can you treat a janitor with the same respect as you would a CEO? Can you see the god in the goddess and the goddess in the god? Can you see the female within the male and the male within the female? Can you see the neutrality and harmony within everything in life, so that you can get out of the lower dimensions into the higher dimensions where everything here makes more sense? Because there is no spiritual war. If you think there's a spiritual war, you have an archonic infection within your mind, and you are being kept in a state of conflict to fuel them. Because they don't want to evolve, because they enjoy the power games. These people, the holy moly schmoly group, don't want to evolve either, because they like the arrogant, narcissistic feel of being mightier and holier than thou. So they continue to balance this out, playing a soccer game like a wrestling match between each other, while the rest of you watch and think, oh, that's the good god, that's the bad god. When to the bad God, it's the good God, and to the good God, it's the bad God. Because the good God will always punish itself, thinking that it's doing something wrong, and the bad God will always think it's doing everything right because it's enjoying what it's doing. Neither are right, neither are wrong, and neither are being judged by Source. We're the ones doing the judging. And I'm here to tell you, quit judging. Neither are different, they are reflections of the same creation. So instead of fighting, instead of building tanks, instead of worrying about dying, just take care of your soul and yourself with your source connection so that you can see what you need to do to climb the ladder of reality and frequencies to get to a higher state of existence and to experience life that is more pleasant and comfortable for you than one where we're sitting here wondering how we're going to pay bills, which is all part of the archonic system. Think about it. If the Aeons were as powerful as you imagine them to be, why haven't they just eliminated the Archons already? If the All-Father is as powerful as he claims to be, or people claim he is, why hasn't he eliminated the devil yet? Because they know it's all neutral. I have to go. I love you. I love you. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Remember, you are a child of God, Source. You are just as powerful as any other being in existence once you learn to connect to the Source. Your abilities will be unlocked and you will see reality for what it really is. But first, you must put down the weapons. You must put down whatever and stop giving the negative sides the ammunition to keep fighting you by giving them the energy from the light that you're emitting while fighting them. Okay? They are powerless unless you consent to fight them, then you give them the power to fight you because then they become your equal. Get it? It's kind of like stepping into a ring with a boxer. If you want to get into a ring and fight, then you're going to get gloves. And guess what? They're going to get gloves too. And they're going to get in the ring too. So what do? They sit in the ring and they bait you to get you to fight so that they can get the energy so that they don't get it from Source. Because if they get it from Source, they evolve and they leave the construct and they can't play mini God anymore. I hope it makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Hi, Lily.